Offered to buy film rights to this book before Justin came along, but it was the letter he wrote to me. I really felt like he understood the book and the characters and do the subject matter justice, and so it felt right giving it to him. And yeah, so I think he did a great job. I was on set for about 1 to 2 weeks, more as like a spectator. I was just there enjoying everything, and I felt like everyone that had a hand in this movie brought their own talent to it and their own passion. And
Hi, besties. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I mentioned a couple days ago that winter was coming for Blake Lively. And for some reason, people assumed that because I made the comment when Justin was still thinking about amending the complaint, which he did not amend his complaint. They missed the deadline. And there has been a lot going on behind the scenes, some of which I have been privy to, but some of which I have not. And one thing I have not been privy to is whether or not they were going to amend the complaint. Publicly, Brian Friedman had stated that they were going to amend the complaint based on a couple of the remaining claims that the judge allowed them to argue. However, Leslie Sloan did something yesterday that might have exposed her and Daily Mail. And this could rattle the case in a way that gives space for a response by Wayfair that could potentially present evidence that refutes what she says. And the statement that she made was that Wayfair lied about her. And they did this because they wanted to stop her from speaking to the press about the SH that occurred and the misconduct that occurred on the set of It Ends With Us. And she claimed that Sarah Nathan and a reporter, James Vasutka, from Daily Mail had provided her evidence in discovery, and she shared a screenshot. And she kept saying over and over and over again that she did not tell anyone, including these two reporters, that Blake was SH'd by anyone. But she's failing to miss the point. In fact, the screenshots and the full context of what was said between James and Leslie that were shared in the New York lawsuit. So they did it in the New York Times first lawsuit. So when they sued New York Times in California, unredacted names of reporters were shared in that filing. And that was filed in the end of December. Those screenshots shared a lot more details about what Leslie was telling people. And it was clear what James was responding to when he said that she never said anything about SH. In fact, his implication was, she didn't tell me anything about SH. She told me it was this. She's lying, meaning they're lying about the SH. Why would she tell us one thing in October? And why would she tell me one thing in August that was completely different and then run to the New York Times months later and then claim it was sexual harassment? Leslie claims that this exonerates her and proves that she didn't lie. But actually, if you read the texts, James calls her a liar. And Leslie shared something yesterday that seems to suggest that the Daily Mail was threatening the reporter after his name showed up in the lawsuit, the one that Wayfair filed against the New York Times. Leslie shared an undated screenshot that she claimed was sent by James to Brian Friedman. The undated screenshot clearly was sent in January of 2025. It was after the New York Times lawsuit that was filed by Wayfair, but before they had filed a complaint against Blake, because by the time they filed the complaint against Blake, his name had been removed. The text message she shared doesn't say what she thinks it says. It says, "Hi, Brian, this is James Vasutka. I need to make it clear that I do not want to be involved in this lawsuit in any way, in any capacity. Being part of the suit or having any association with it, if names are removed, will jeopardize my job and career. Please ensure I am fully excluded and mentioned of Daily Mail in connection with myself before filing. He asked that Brian remove his name and that Daily Mail be removed. And he said that if he was involved in this, he could lose his job. The implication here is obvious to me because I'm a reporter. And it's because Daily Mail was obviously, in my opinion, threatening James that they would fire him. But why would they fire him? Two reasons. One, James exposed a source to Wayfair. The source of defamatory articles that came out in August was Leslie. He exposed the source as Leslie. News outlets don't like their sources to be outed because then it means that other sources might not come forward with information and then it shows that they won't protect their sources. But also, James told Brian that Leslie was a liar. And James had provided proof of Leslie providing him false information to Wayfair that she had given him in August of 2024. So not only was Daily Mail threatening to fire him, according to this screenshot, based on the fact that a source was revealed, but also it appears that they were scared about the liability they might have now that this lawsuit was in play. It wouldn't look good to Daily Mail to have their company named in a lawsuit where it's talking about defamation and defamatory stories being published. They appeared to want no mention of their stories whatsoever. And back in August of 2024, Leslie told James, according to the articles published by the Daily Mail under his byline, that Justin was abusive. He turned into an abuser. He was chauvinistic and misogynistic. He didn't take Blake's view into account. He sidelined her and Colleen. Blake had to rewrite the scripts because Colleen demanded it. And so he also claimed that Ryan had to come in to save the script because the script was a disaster. A script that was written by a woman and partially written by Colleen Hoover. Leslie was planting stories with the Daily Mail to justify Blake's takeover of the film. It would be very hard for Blake to explain how she got this kind of control on a film when she was only hired as an actress. What I did was I looked through the screenshots that were shared in that first lawsuit where they filed it against the New York Times. And there's a text message from Leslie to James and it says, "Your story is so mean. I guess you and Melissa are in cahoots." So she's accusing him of planting stories with Melissa Nathan. His response was, "I reached out to you on Thursday via text to let you know that our reporter Lillian had sent some quotes and I was asked to write it, including what they were. I ended up calling out on Friday so I could paint, so she ended up writing it. Not putting blame on her, but the reason my name is also on the piece is because half of the reporting in it was mine. The following quotes are below. And I do talk to Melissa, but she is in no way giving me any anti-Blake info. Blake's backlash is due to her own words and actions in interviews. The only thing she told me is that what she told you and that this is all organic." These are the quotes that she gave me. "During scenes depicting abuse, Justin failed to consider Blake's point of view." That was in the article. And that cuts off. So in there, she didn't mention this in her declaration or her motion for sanctions, that Daily Mail told him, "Melissa never told me anything anti-Blake." And then he tells Leslie all of the backlash that Blake is receiving is organic. And then another screenshot says, "Yes, mean. Your quotes are kind and true. Tired of the bullying and the hate." So she says the quote that during scenes depicting abuse, Justin failed to consider Blake's point of view is a kind and true quote. And she said, "Tired of the bullying and hate." So Justin failing to consider Blake's point of view, who is an actress on the film, is kind and true and basically accusing him of being chauvinistic and misogynistic because he as a man has no business directing a woman's abuse scenes. It says, "I'm tired of the bullying and the hate." And then James responded, "I knew early on it was going to happen, which is the first time I called you before the movie came out, and I was trying to prevent anti-Blake BS, and I did for a minute. It was getting so bad for him, he had to hire Melissa. But then after that one interview where she said her GPS cell phone thing, it's obvious she was kidding, but it just snowballed and kept going and going. It will all turn around. You know how to flip the script better than anyone. And then she said, please make it turn around. I know you're friends with Melissa. Please make it turn around. What does that mean? She wants him to publish stories that will be favorable to Blake and not to Justin. Another text message that was shared in the New York Times lawsuit says, and this has to do with the script rewrites. It says, yes, please, as thus the info is all wrong. She didn't require script runs, nothing to do with this. She produced the film and she got a cut. She doesn't say why she got a cut. She doesn't say why she got a cut, only that she produced the film and she got a cut. Not that she threatened not to promote, not that she threatened not to let Taylor Swift's song be in it, not that she threatened that she would get the whole cast to not promote. What the F is going on? The whole cast doesn't like Justin. It has nothing to do with Blake. So she's suggesting that Justin was such a problem on the set that everyone hated him, and that had nothing to do with Blake's influence, which wasn't true. And then James says, like I said, though, the reporting is that there were issues between her and Justin as well as others, and that Justin found it difficult to work with her. One of these reporters known is close with Stephanie Jones because they used to always get Tom Brady Giselle shit, and Stephanie reps him. I believe. I told them she is awful and not to rely on anything she says. So he told Leslie that the reporter that was getting insight about what was happening on set, that it was coming directly from Stephanie Jones. And then Leslie says, I'm telling you that she's a liar. They are panicking as the whole cast hates him. And so she said, so they want to run something based on this reporting, and I want to shut it down, but need something to shut it down with, and I know she's a liar. I just need to get my editor on board because she has 3 reporters feeding her bullshit, 2 from LA. I promise she is lying. This will not look good for your site. The entire cast I will have go on record. So they're telling her, she knows it's Stephanie Jones that's doing this, not Jen Abel, not Melissa Nathan, Stephanie Jones. And she's calling Stephanie Jones a liar. And she says, can you give me anything at all on what the issue was then, if it's not her and it's him? And she said, no, I'm on a plane. This needs to hold on. There's another one where she's trying to get him to talk about Melissa. And she said, Leslie says, good for you. I know you're friends with Melissa. And James says, yeah, we are. And she says, I'm not paid to take people down. I'm honest. And James again says, she hasn't done anything literally anti-Blake. And Leslie says, okay, KK. And she told me the same thing that she told you, which is she said that Blake's backlash is organic. And Leslie says, it's not. She did nothing but help get a movie, make tons of money. Justin makes tons. And then he responded, she was kind of off promoting it as if it was Barbie. It's just based on the things that she said directly. Melissa definitely doesn't talk shit. She's like you, incredibly honest and fair. She told me what she did to steer Justin away from the drama, but nothing about Blake. And Leslie says, not fair. And he again reiterates, was literally zero Blake. And he says, got it, but there are others at your paper and site. And he says 15,000. So there was 3 reporters beyond him that were getting information. And he's telling her over and over and over again that this wasn't Melissa that gave us this. It was Stephanie Jones. Melissa's not talking crap about her. He's saying everything is organic. Melissa told you this is organic. They're not planting stories. They didn't like that answer. The last text exchange I sent you was on August 8th. August 8th. Jed was not hired until August 9th. She was already telling James that all of the backlash that she was getting online, Blake was because of Melissa and a smear campaign. They had already decided the minute Melissa was hired that the backlash was against and because of Melissa. They created the story immediately. Melissa had been working less than a week at this point. She had not hired anyone to manage the digital side. She was not doing anything on the digital side. And this was after Blake had done an interview where she talked about the GPS, about what she would say to a fan if they approached her and asked her about, resources, and they want to talk about their experiences. And she was very flippant. This is after they posted, she made the grab your florals and bring your friends to go to the movie. This was after she had been on the red carpet and said that Ryan wrote the rooftop scene. This was after the premiere of the film on the 6th. And people were online talking about what they were seeing online. And she's trying to pin that all on Melissa. And he's telling her over and over and over again, this was not Melissa. They decided a smear campaign was happening online the minute Melissa was hired. Melissa couldn't even do anything. And they had already accused her of running a smear campaign. And then they bring Brian Friedman on like 3 days later. So when did the smear campaign happen? If Jed came on the 9th and they were already accusing them of a smear campaign. I thought the digital army was before the 9th. I mean, even Blake's lawsuit says that it was in the beginning of August, and that wasn't what was going on. Regardless, Leslie is omitting all of these details. She's omitting all of the facts here of James telling her that no smear campaign happened. James telling her that Melissa didn't plant anything. In her motion for sanctions and for attorney's fee for $1.3 million, she says that all of that was a lie, all of it, because James said all of this in his declaration. James said that he was never told about sexual harassment. No, what James told Wayfair was that in August of 2024, she told him all this other stuff, right? And then in December of 2024, she changed her story. And now Blake was pushing a story of sexual harassment. And his implication was that they know that this is bullshit because it didn't happen. So they're changing their story. Now, the judge didn't agree that that's what he meant, but that's what he meant. Either way, what is clear is that she is relying on a declaration which says that he regrets sharing the text messages and that she never told him that he sexually assaulted anyone and that she didn't feed any negative stories, but she did feed negative stories. And she says that as long as it's the truth, it's fine. Sure, that's true. Same goes for Wayfair. But was it true that Colleen demanded rewrites? No. Was it true that Ryan had to come in and fix the script? No. Is it true that Blake misled Wayfair and said she was the one doing rewrites and then it was later Ryan that took the credit for it? Yes. Was it true that she came in and said that Ryan had to do it after he was accused of scabbing and writing during the writer's strike? Yes. She was using lies to cover up lies to cover up lies. Whether or not that's defamatory or actionable is not for me to decide. But for her to say that she was not planting negative stories is false. Absolutely false. And what she exposed more than anything is that Daily Mail threatened a reporter with their job when he provided evidence to Wayfair that Leslie was a source for these defamatory articles. And when he was named in the New York Times lawsuit, he ran to Brian Friedman and he said, you need to take my name out or I'm going to lose my job. Well, that's a clear implication that he's been threatened, that you need to get your ass out of this. And then he also asks them to remove the Daily Mail out of the lawsuit, the Daily Mail name. Brian didn't do that. I mean, they have to reference the articles that are published, right? But it was clear in that text that Daily Mail is trying to cover up the liability that they could hold if it were to come out that Leslie Sloan is an unreliable source, fed them false information about Justin, and contributed to negative stories that were false. And so they have an incentive to silence their reporter. And what else could they do? Could they possibly use in-house counsel to pressure him to sign a declaration that's not true? Because his declaration doesn't match anything that he told Brian or Melissa in all of the texts that they shared. It says that he regrets sharing that. No, he actually said that this proves that Leslie was talking crap about Melissa, that Leslie wasn't listening to me about Melissa. This proves, if anything else, that Leslie wants to put this all on Melissa. But she didn't discuss that in her motion for attorney's fees. Not all negative statements are actionable, right? Not all things that you say about people are actionable. But it appears that Daily Mail at that point in time was threatening to fire a reporter for exposing the truth about what happened with their reporting. Some journalists will say it's unethical to expose a source. Others will say that ethics of journalism means being truthful. And if a source was wrong, you go back and correct the record. And Daily Mail did neither. They did not correct their record by removing the story or updating it. Instead, they flipped and sort of started doing more pro Justin stuff after the lawsuit came out, but they put most of the pro Justin stuff behind a paywall. And then all the pro Blake stuff was free for readers to read. So you could only see the exclusives if you paid to see them, which is a small portion of their subscriber base. So did Daily Mail threaten James to sign a declaration that wasn't true? Is it possible that that declaration was signed under duress? Given that in January he said that they were threatening to sue him, they were threatening to fire him? Maybe. What if that entire declaration she's relying on is false? What if they forced him to sign that? Would that change things? Do you think Blake, do you think Leslie filing that could expose more? Were Leslie's lawyers involved in that? Did they pressure him to do that too? Because his declaration doesn't match anything he said before. And he's definitely not on Leslie's side. He's still Melissa's friends. Maybe, just maybe, Justin is not amending his complaint because maybe they're going to appeal the ruling. Maybe they're going to have a declaration overturned or withdrawn. We'll have to wait and see. I think more is coming, but I don't know why they didn't amend the complaint. I just know that the Daily Mail threatened a reporter to fire him to cover up what they had done. That's a big bombshell to me. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, guys.